Hey guys, it's me, James, and I'm recording this on my webcam because this is very last minute. I should have done this a couple days ago, but you know, sometimes things get in the way. You procrastinate, and also I'm doing it on webcam because uh, the place I recorded last time is technically not a part of the house. It doesn't have AC. It's attached to the house, but it doesn't have the AC. So it's been hot here the last few days, and I've seen I have to edit this, and when I see myself get all sweaty and disgusting, it's not pretty. So this has been an interesting month. E3 happened. I kept, I watched it through live streams and stuff. And I'll talk about that later because that's gonna replace one of our things. If you don't know, this is my end of the month vlog where I talk about the things I've played, the books I've read, and the shows I've watched. 2 out of 3 of these is not going to be those topics. I ended up not really reading anything from beginning to end, and I didn't really watch anything. Well, that's kind of a lie. I watched I discovered the Great British Baking Show, or I believe in the UK it's called British Bake Off, on Netflix, and that is a good show. It's so but I'm probably going to be watching that through July because I have 2 more seasons to get through. So we'll talk about that at the next vlog. Uh, but I think I'm done here rambling. Let's just get into the first segment. Video games, what I played. So I ended up playing 3 games. The first one is called Passportout, the Starving Artist. I more than likely pronounced that wrong, but you know, I'm not gonna. I don't know how to say it. It's a PC game. You can find it on Steam. I actually did a quick look. Let's look at. I forgot what I named my stupid ass thing. Of the game of me playing for like a half hour. So if it sounds interesting, go check that out. In Passportout, you play this green alien looking guy who's a starving artist in France. You start from the bottom, you move yourself up, and it's a painting game, and the painting's very basic. You have a blank canvas, you have a brush tool, and you have a limited selection of colors. You can't change the colors you have, and you just doodle, really. It's very simple. You do unlock other tools like a spray can tool or a something that's supposed to be helpful with curves. I forget what they call it. But the best way to explain it, it's like a more simple MS Paint. But you paint something. Maybe you paint yourself or a landscape or whatever, and then you put it on your store table to sell it. And there's different kinds of customers. So in the first act of the game, you have these hipsters who will buy almost anything unless it's the color pink. You'll have punk rockers who likes to buy more expressionist, lines everywhere. Throw paint at the canvas and show your fucking expression. And they're a pain in the ass to paint for. And then there's these older guys who I forget what the term in the game is, but they like things that take time, landscapes, portraits, stuff like that. Something you took time to actually do right. And depending on who you sell to the most, you'll get discovered, and that'll move you to the next act. And who you sold to will determine which act you go to, because it's a branching system. There's multiple endings to the game. One of the endings I got was I pretty much just kept selling to the highest bidder, and I was only in it for the money, apparently. And that was one of the endings I got. I don't know how many endings in the game. Uh, the, so Passportout is very simple. It's $10 though, and it can be pretty quick, especially if you only play it once. All 3 acts. It can take really nothing. But I really like it, even though it's short. I mean, $10 is, not too bad of a price, first of all. But also, I don't know, it was almost kind of therapeutic being able to just sit there and paint, listen to a podcast, or watch YouTube videos while I, fake paint and sell the art and just paint whatever came to me. It didn't really matter. I didn't really paint for the actual clientele, and I probably had more fun that way. But yeah, Passportout. It's interesting. I think go check it out. Again, go check out the video I did if you want to see it more in action with my commentary, or you can go check out the Steam page, which I'll have linked it in the description below. So the second game I played was Diaries of a Spaceport Janitor. I recorded a little series of this, my Let's Start, where I played the beginning, like hour and a half of the game. At the end of that video series, I said I was going to go play some more of it. Sadly, I didn't get the chance, and I'm not even sure if I'm going to go back and play in my free time. If you haven't watched the videos, Spaceport Janitor is has a very striking look. It's like a 2D sprites, but in like a 3D environment. The city, the spaceport, and it has crazy designs because it's filled with aliens and very interesting looking creatures. And not only that, it's surrounded with markets and vendors trying to sell stuff. It's actually kind of interesting walking around, and you'll instantly know when you're close to like a restaurant or a food vendor because you'll just hear the food grilling, that noise. It surprised me how well it did at letting me know what's nearby just by noise. So at the beginning of the game, you think, oh, I'm just a janitor. You pick up trash, you burn it for money because at the next day you'll get money based on how much things you've burnt, how much trash you've burnt. But in the beginning of the game, for some reason, you go into these sewers that you think there's treasure in. You go in, and instead you find this curse, and now this like giant skull follows you around. And honestly, I think that might be the reason I might not go back and play, because I like the idea of like being a janitor, being unhappy with life, trying to make enough money to find your way out, or even just to survive. And instead it has this silly little story with this curse, and it more so feels like it's trying to put this like very linear story in something that feels very open world. But I also only played for like an hour and a half, so maybe that just gets handled very quickly and that's supposed to be a tutorial. I don't know. But the things that I like what the game does well is it really does make you feel like money is very valuable, because you can trash as much stuff the next day, you'll get money and you'll go, that's not enough, mate. I don't know if you have to pay rent or anything, but food you definitely have to buy because you'll go hungry. And I don't know if you can die from hunger, but I'd rather not risk it. And so you have to actually really think about where you buy food, because you can go to a place and they'll be like, hey, $200 for this thing. And, that's just too much. That's maybe two or three times the money you made from the previous day. So you have to travel the city looking for a good place to eat while also picking up trash. Another thing that's really interesting is your character has, I'm going to call it addiction, because when you don't take this item, the screen will tilt, it'll become fuzzy, and there'll be static, and it becomes harder to read words. And you have to take this item called gender. I believe that's what it's called in the game. And it says it physically changes your gender. So when you take the pill, I only did it once. If I do play again, you probably have to do that a bunch of times. But the one time I had to take it, it said my gender is now swarm cat, which doesn't sound like a gender. Sounds more like an alien species or animal or something. But maybe that's some kind of statement about gender and the classification of gender in general. I don't know. Actually, that's my problem with it. Actually, is it, I feel like it's trying to make a statement, but it's not. It's not really letting me know. It feels like it's playing it kind of safely in a way, because in some sense, it says it physically changes your gender. It's called gender or something to that effect, and you take it. It says your gender changed, but everything about the screen tilting, the static, I called it withdrawal effects because it seems more like an allegory for drugs, like you have this addiction. So I don't know. Maybe it is trying to be both a statement about gender and drugs and something. I just wish it was a bit more spelt out to me in a way, but it's not. You know, it's not a bad thing. But probably my favorite thing about Diaries of a Spaceport Janitor is at the end of the day, after doing your picking up trash, finding some food to eat, going home, finding your way back home, and then going to bed, this little icon pops up, and out pops a diary. And you can actually write in it. So with a controller, you have to use like the analog stick and hit the 4 face buttons to type. It was actually not a bad way to type. I would have preferred a mouse and keyboard, but I was playing with a controller because I was recording. And first of all, it completely surprised me when it popped up on screen. I don't know why it's in the title of the freaking game, but a lot of times, diaries and stuff, they're just save points. You just go hit, hey, do you want to save? And then you go to the next day. So I like that. I liked writing into the journal, the diary itself. You could just go like A, and then hit enter and be done. But I don't know. I liked actually typing in it. Saying what happened that day, that I got cursed. I met some asshole who was a dick, and I threw away a bunch of trash. I don't know. It's something about that mechanic that actually makes me smile. It's very unique, and I like that. There's a lot of uniqueness to this game in general, which I like. And in all honesty, talking about this game makes me want to go and play it again. But that the whole curse with the skull thing and having to do this quest to find these tablets to get them together to get rid of the skull. I don't know. Like I said before, it feels like they're putting a linear path or a story mode to this thing that is absolutely an open world game that you should just be exploring and taking in. Like, it doesn't really need this thing that's just pulls you along. No, the world is actually enough to pull you along. Your day job, the janitor job, is enough to pull you along. This extra thing with the skull is just annoying because it keeps yelling at you every now and again. So, I don't know. I might go back. I might not. We'll see next month, I guess. So the third game I played is Pit People. I picked it up during the Steam Summer Sale. It's one of the few games I picked up in the Steam Summer Sale. I'm starting to find out I buy too many games. I'm running out of games to buy. But Pit People is this strategy game. It's by the people who made Castle Crashers and Battle Block Theater. And it's a game my friend, when it first came out in early access, and it's still in early access, by the way. When it first came out, my friend was really wanted to get it, but I didn't really have the money at the time. So with the sale going on, we both decided to get it because you can play it co-op. It's a strategy turn-based game. You have a team of people. You have quests to do. And I kind of want to explain the story, but I kind of can't because it's so random in a sense. It's very random. It's funny though. It's hysterical. The narrator is legitimately funny. The cutscenes have a lot of good humor to it, but I can't really nail down exactly what's going on in the story, and that's not a bad thing. So yeah, it's a strategy turn-based game. You can go out to the world, you travel around in this caravan. There will be enemies on the world map, and when you bump into one, a battle starts. You'll have like I'm going to say 5 or 6 people on your team. The enemy team will have what can feel like 10 or 15 at times enemies on their team. And maybe it's that much because I'm playing it with my friends, so we have like 5 or 6 people each, and so that's probably why the enemy team is so large. But yeah, and then you just move your people on this hex grid, and placement really matters because you can move your characters, but you can't tell them exactly who to attack. So let's just say you had 2 people from the enemy team, like right here, and you told your guy to move next to them. That dude's gonna decide who it's gonna hit. Either it's gonna hit, and it's pretty random, honestly. It could, he can decide to hit him or him, and if you really have to be like, okay, I need to move this guy here because this guy's low of health, and I need him to attack this guy. But because the battlefield can feel pretty narrow or small, and there can be so many things going on, you're more than likely gonna have to move your characters next to multiple opponents and just pray to God that they hit the right, the person you want them to hit, which can be a little frustrating, let's just say. But the other really cool thing about Pit People is, let's say there was 5 enemies on a team and you were fighting. If you kill 4 of them, the last person, you can capture them. You can throw this cage on them, and if you bring them back to the city, you get them to join your team. And it kind of has this Pokemon feeling to it, because you'll go and you'll see like something that looks, you can honestly just see something and be like, that looks cool, I want it. Sometimes you'll see, some big like this thing that's hitting people like across the map, and you'll be like, oh, I want that. And what's really interesting about that, it creates a really interesting dynamic, because if you want something powerful, that means you have to leave it alive at the end to capture it. So you have to be attacking everything else while this thing is probably hitting you and hitting you hard, but you're trying to avoid damaging it too much to kill it. So yeah, that's pretty much Pit People. It's a very interesting game. Has a lot of like good diversity of the creatures. Everything looks very unique and interesting. And not only that, if you play Battle Block Theater, you'll know that this has a bunch of hats and weapons and crazy designs, and all that's reflected on the enemy team. So you can play the game and everything looks great. So like I said before, I didn't read any books. Well, I didn't read any books from beginning to end. So instead of talking about books, instead I figured I'll talk about board games, because I got to play one recently. Moving down to Jersey, I'm physically closer to my family. So there's been some family dinners with my aunt and uncle, and they have a couple board games that they like to play. And we ended up playing one of my aunt's favorite. It's called The Castles of Burgundy. It's a game that takes place in like medieval France. You can tell by the name, The Castles of Burgundy, by that. And in it, what happens is each player gets like a board, a mat, and on that mat has a little table telling you what certain things do, but it's like a landmass And there's more than these colors. I'm just gonna say it. It's divided up in certain colors. So, brown is like buildings. Light green is animals. Blue is seas. Well, yes, blue is water, which is used for ships. And there's a main board where you can keep track of points and turn order, but it also has a bunch of these little tiles that you can buy and place on your mat, buildings and animals and ships. And I'm not going to get into the whole how the game works because I'd be sitting here for a while because it is a little bit complicated, but pretty much what happens is at the beginning of each turn, everyone rolls 2d6s at the same time. And depending on the turn order, you go. So let's just say I was first. Let's say I rolled a 5 and a 3. So I would maybe buy a building on the board, but I have to pick from either the 5 or the 3 zone because I rolled a 5 or a 3. So let's just say I picked a ship from area. Let's say I picked up a ship from area 5. So I would put that in my queue on my mat. Then I can, let's just say I had a water area that's marked number 3. I can then build that ship on that water area. And so each turn, you pretty much have those two things. You can also do a few other things, but again, let's not get bogged down by it. So what you're doing is you're kind of like building up your settlement, your city on this mat while everyone else is doing the same. And let's just say there's 3 ocean tiles together, and then it's divided up. Then it's like separated from the rest by animals and building areas. When you fill up those 3 water areas with ships, you score points. So let's just say for an area that's 3 big, you get 8 points, and then depending on what round it is, you get certain points. So in the beginning of the game, completing those, an area will give you more points than at the end, the last round will give you the least amount of points. So you want to try filling up these areas as soon as possible. So it's an interesting game. It's also a game I don't think I would ever buy myself because it's one of those games where you see it and you go, well, okay, it's mechanically sound, but there isn't this thing that draws me in. For me, a lot of games generally have either it has a really good art, something like Shinobi Clans. I really liked it based on the art. Pixel Tactics has has art that just sticks out to me, or it has a very interesting mechanical hook, like Castle. No, oh god, what's the game called? Betrayal on Top of the Hill. That has that such an interesting thing where you're building the board through these tiles, but not only that, halfway through the game, someone is marked to be the betrayer, who's gonna have this special task that generally ends with killing who used to be your team members, because it's cooperative in the beginning. And it's so interesting because in that game, you don't know who's going to be the betrayer until it happens. So games like that is what usually grabs my interest, something that has this specific hook or has a very interesting look to it. Castle of Burgundy, the art, it feels plain to me. It's mechanically sound, but nothing's there that goes, oh, that's so interesting. I want to see that be played out in a game. Probably my also other reason I would probably never get the Castles of Burgundy is, well, it's kind of a quiet game because you're all doing your own thing and you don't want to give out your strategies to everyone else. So you all are kind of quiet while playing this board game. And I have board games that are like that as well. But I like games that gets people talking. So stuff like Tales of Arabian Nights, everyone's doing something, but you're all like telling this story together. The metagame or red flags, where you're trying to debate and convince someone to pick your choice. Games like that, I really like games that can get people talking, especially for me, because generally in a lot of social situations, I don't talk, and that's my problem. So having something that's a bit more of a icebreaker in that way is usually more interesting to me. Uh, so yeah, it's Castles of Burgundy is a good game. I like it. I just probably would never buy it. The other and another reason I just remembered why I wouldn't buy it is there's a good chance I'm going to be playing, introducing people to board games, and Castles of Burgundy has this a has it's not a lot of rules, but it's a lot of juggling of rules, knowing what certain icons mean. There's these other like buildings, they're yellow. I forget what they're called. They're like knowledge tiles or wisdom tiles or something like that, which changed the rules of the game. So generally, you're not allowed to put like two of the same buildings in the same zone together. But if you have this specific yellow token, you can do that now. Or you'll have one that says, hey, at the end of the game, get 4 points for every carpenter shop you have on your board, and stuff like that. So it can feel like it can feel like you're juggling a lot. And then when someone's taking their turn, and let's say they're getting an extra worker for one of their things you do, you gotta be like, wait. Why are you getting 3 instead of 2 workers? It'll be like, oh well, I have this tile here, and because the game can be like an hour to an hour and a half long, maybe there. I feel like sometimes I forget because I'm also juggling my own things. How can I juggle their things as well? So yeah, I don't think it's that great for like a introduction to board games, unless you're really into the idea of like medieval France and building your own towns and doing your own thing. Then hey, check it out. I'll go see if I can find a review for it from Shut Up and Sit Down. I don't know if they've done one, but that's the website I generally go to for interesting reviews for board games. So like I said before, I didn't really watch anything other than E3. I watched some live streams. I mostly just watched the main conferences: Microsoft, Ubisoft, Sony, Nintendo, pretty much all the big ones. And I felt like it was a kind of meh year for E3 in that retrospect, because it just felt like Microsoft was the only one who had much to say on anything, and that's because they were releasing their Xbox One X, their new Xbox. I don't know. But there were a few games I saw that looked interesting that I want to keep up with. So I figured I'll just list them out. We won't go too deep into them. But yeah, let's just start. So the first game that really struck me was The Last Night. It was shown on the Microsoft Store during its little indie section. One of those montages that just happen that shows something for like 5 seconds and then goes to the next game. And when this thing popped up on screen, I just went, holy shit. What is this game? I need to write the name down and look it up later. And thankfully it's coming to PC. It's this like maybe not 2D, but like sprite based look to it that has this. It does such a good job with its camera work and its lighting effects that it has such a striking look to it. It takes place in this future cyberpunk world where everyone has doesn't work because robots do everything. So everyone lives in this like everyone has like AR glasses that lets them see things and stuff like that, except for your character for some reason. And that's all I know, and that's all I want to know because I just want to play the game now. I think it comes out in 2018. It's coming out on Xbox One and PC on Steam. I'll put a Steam link to that if you want to go check it out to see the trailer, because I know I shouldn't be excited about something just because it looks good. Like, really, it should play good as well or tell an interesting story. But man, it's been a while since a game showed a trailer and I went, whoa. So another game that looks really interesting is Anthem. It's by BioWare. I know BioWare hasn't been so hot recently with the release of Mass Effect Armageddon, but there's something about Anthem that looks really interesting to me. I really like the environment, the jungle-like setting. I really like how the suits look. And they said the suits are customizable. So if that's as customizable as I'm hoping it is, um, I, I, for some reason it just strikes me as something that seems very interesting and very fun. And I think it can be a very unique game just from being able to customize your suits. If it is just like, oh, I can put a turret here and a shocker here, or I can put a flamethrower here and a shield here, and like if it's basic like that, but if there is a wide variety of items, very unique, interesting items, and there's apparently different kinds of suits you can have. I'm hoping it can be. I really hope you can have like a character, and you can be the only one that has a certain array of items because you found a way to make it work where other people have their own strategies with different items. But if it's something like, oh, you can have this thing, it's like a shotgun, but it shoots electricity as well. And here's another item. It's like a shotgun, but it shoots flame things as well. Like, I don't give a shit. I want very unique weapons, I guess. And I see the resemblance to Destiny. Everyone compares it to Destiny, or at least what I've heard. But for me, I felt like I got burnt from Destiny 1, and I'm not getting Destiny 2. I know that much for sure. But Anthem, even though I can see the resemblance to Destiny, it gets me excited for that kind of gameplay again. So I'm definitely going to keep an eye on Anthem and check it out in the future. The next game that looks really interesting is Monster Hunter Worlds. It's an HD Monster Hunter. Fucking finally. How many times this game has been on the PSP, the 3DS, the fucking Wii? Was there one for the Wii U? Probably. It's finally coming to PlayStation 4, and I'm assuming other systems as well. I don't care. It's an HD Monster Hunter. I'm not even that big of a fan of Monster Hunter, but even I was getting annoyed by how there's not a fucking HD Monster Hunter. I hope it's good so they can put out more HD Monster Hunter, because I love the idea of Monster Hunter. But by the time I got interested, it's on the PSP, which isn't the best way to play. You have to do like this claw. You have to hold your PSP with a claw so you can do camera controls and stuff. Then it came to the 3DS, where I didn't really want to buy a second analog stick to play with the game. And then it came to like the Wii or the Wii U, and it's just like, fuck it, I don't care anymore. So hopefully with it coming to PS4, I'm gonna take a look at it. I like the idea of Monster Hunter. It's been a while since it's been on a system that's probably more equipped for Monster Hunter. Next game is Detroit Become Human. Yeah, it's by David Cage, the guy behind Heavy Rain and Beyond Two Souls, games that weren't particularly well done. But Detroit looks good. It looks interesting. I like the idea of the whole Android revolution idea and the being able to play an Android in that kind of setting sounds cool. I am a little worried that the morality choices you make, deciding, oh, should we be violent or should we be peaceful? I'm afraid like that's going to be more like too close to like how Mass Effect handled morality or how Infamous handled morality, where it doesn't, it's not like it's never valuable to, be in the gray. Either you full blown go bad or you full blown go good. And I really hope the game doesn't fall into that trap, because this could be interesting. Because that just feels lazy. I would generally I would more like to be a character that has a bit more depth to it, being able to be like, hey, I draw the line here. I'm not gonna kill someone, or I'm not gonna vandalize something, or being being a good guy and being like, hey, I'm not gonna kill, but I need to kill this one guy because he's a monster, you know. But instead, in these games, you just have to uh, either be all good or all bad. If you don't get certain upgrades or items or powers, and that can be quite frustrating. So hopefully Detroit Become Human avoids that. Okay, we're down to the last two games that I think are really interesting. And it's Sea of Thieves. This is the Rare pirate game. I was super excited when they announced this the last time. I think it might have been 2 E3s ago, and I am still excited. I really like the idea of a pirate game. I really love the art style. I think it's very charming, the fact that you can like play instruments. You have to be very involved with driving the ship, and I even though I don't have friends to play with, I really like the idea of multiplayer games that are very cooperative in such a way. So hopefully, when it comes out, I'll have a friend or two to play it with. I don't really want to play it with randoms, but because that just sounds like a terrible idea. And I, yeah, I can't wait for this game to come out. I, mmm. And the last game that looks really interesting is Hidden Agenda. It's a game for the PlayStation 4. It wasn't shown on any of the on their main stage. It was shown on the show floor, I believe. It's a game by Supermassive Games, the people behind Until Dawn. They're doing a lot of games, by the way. They're doing like 2 VR projects in this game. So that's amazing. They went from like I've never heard of them Until Dawn, and then boom, they're doing all these projects. But in Hidden Agenda, it's this like crime drama kind of game. It's I don't know how to get into it because my brain's a little frazzled right now. Uh, but there's like 2 different storylines. One where you're this cop who's tracking down this like murderer or something, and one where you're this lawyer who's convicting this murderer. So in it, you play this with your phone. First of all, it's a multiplayer game. You can play it by yourself, but it's a multiplayer game, and options will appear on screen like Telltale games. So everyone will be like, "Hey, should we split up or should we stick together?" And everyone can vote, and whoever votes the most goes. That decision happens. There's also these cards you can play to be like, nah, I'm making this decision. Now you guys have input to this, and you have a limited amount of those points, those cards. And if someone plays the card, then they overrule you, and then they have the decision to make. And the reason it's called a Hidden Agenda is one person will have a hidden agenda, something like they have to do something very specific. And not only that, you want to hide it from others, because at the end you all have to vote on who had the hidden agenda. It just sounds interesting. I believe they're also they're not trying to do like Until Dawn, where it was like uh I want to say that's maybe a 5 to 7 hour game. They're trying to make it more short so you can play it with like a group of friends, one night instead of doing like a movie night or something. It looks really interesting. I wish I didn't move and still had friends to play it with when it does come out, but it looks really interesting. I'm gonna have a link to a Waypoint article that showed me that this game exists. It was the first place I've heard about this game, and yeah, and it looks cool. Okay, so that's everything I've played, everything I board game played, and my little E3 list of games that look really interesting. Next month, I'm looking to, I'll probably play more Pit People. I'm trying to think what else comes out. I think Pyre comes out during July, so I'll probably take a look at that. I think it comes late July though. And yeah, I need to get back to playing Persona 5. It's been a while since I've played it, like a month, which is terrible. Hopefully when I get back into it, I'll know where I am. For books, I'm looking to do I actually have it here? Yeah. I'm currently reading through Monster of the Week. It's a tabletop RPG game. It uses Apocalypse World engine. And yeah, hopefully I'll have that finished by next month, and I'll talk about that. And for things I'm watching, it's mostly going to be the Great British Baking Show, which is just a very lovely show. If you're in the US on Netflix, you can watch it. The UK version, The Great British Bake Off, you figure out how to watch it, you lucky devils, because it's such a good show. So yeah, I guess that's everything. Thank you for watching this. If you've watched it all the way, you're awesome. And I guess I'll see you next month. Well, no, hopefully you watch my other videos and you'll see me in those videos. But yes. See you next time.